I know Councilor Labange is on his way. We do have several presentations, and today is, I'm going to drag this out as long as I can, hoping Tom will burst through these doors. This is the Ad Hoc River Committee, a special meeting Monday, February 22nd, 2010. And we have several presentations today. And in the audience, we have several folks that I want to thank them for being here. We have Mr. Harry Chandler from the Los Angeles River Corporation. Thank you, sir, for being here with us. We'll be hearing from our speakers who are representing very important partners in this process, the mayor's office, Mr. Moore, Mr. Gary Moore from the Public Works, and our city engineer. And it was real pleasant to be visiting your domain over on, what street is that? 1149 Broadway, the old Transamerica site. It's an amazing place. You guys done it very well. But it was great to see the force in one room, and then to see the Riverly folks in their respective location, all the beautiful maps and products that have been produced in this process. And maybe we should have some kind of a gallery or just to display everything we have out there. It's amazing. A lot of good stuff. That being said, all that's left for me to do is start tap dancing, and I won't do that. So why don't we start? Mr. CLA with the first item, or Madam Clerk, however you guys want to do it.
Mr.
Okay.
CLA.
All right.
Mr. CLA. Mr. CLA, Rafael Prieto with the CLA's office. Presentation by the Army Corps of Engineers relative to the Los Angeles River Ecosystem Restoration Feasibility Study.
Great. And we have with us, I believe, is Kathy Bergman. And is Mr. Darrell Buxton with us as well? Okay. Now, I want to thank you because I know headquarters for you is Arizona.
Yes.
And so you're only 1 hour away, and like you were saying, that's probably closer than most people that when they commute. So I want to thank you for being here. And we've been joined by the Honorable Councilmember Tom Labange. Yeah. But the greatest cheerleader for Los Angeles has joined us. And I want to welcome him. And Councilor Labange, we just had started number one, and we have Ms. Kathy Bergman, who is the lead planner for the study. And she will be, why don't you take it away and let us know what's going to happen next.
Okay. Well, this initial slide shows...
Can you put the microphone a little bit closer to you? There you go.
This initial slide shows us what the LA River used to look like. And I'm not, why don't I just hold it? No? Okay. Is that better? Yes.
There you go.
This initial slide shows us what the LA River looked like in 1880 near Griffith Park. And so we hope that as the river is restored in the future, there will be areas that look like this again.
And I think some people are hoping there'll be some trout there someday. But go ahead.
The study actions to date include the feasibility scoping meeting in November of 2007, which established what the existing conditions are in the river. Since then, the PMP has been revised, and then we began working again with plan formulation charrettes in December of 2009, and the habitat team was formed following that meeting to look at what the existing conditions habitat values are, and then determine what alternatives values are going to be. And our current activities are developing an initial large array of alternatives where we've weighted the objectives to determine, which objectives were the most important in the study. Now we're looking at the different measures to address those objectives and weighting them. Then that will help us in our screening of alternatives. The next milestone conference is the Alternative Review Conference, the F4, which currently is scheduled for March 2011. And this is a change in schedule that I'll explain.
Does that mean it's going to happen quicker?
No.
Okay.
Sorry. The optimal schedule on this slide is shown in the blue and gray. And that would have gotten us to the 2 years from last April, a finish in 2 years from last April. But it's had to be extended because the PMP process took longer than expected, And then
And what's the PMP process again?
it's revising the PMP to address the increase in study cost and the change in focus of the study from the entire 30 miles within the city of LA to the Arbor Reach, and there'll be some reformulation that has to occur because of that. So there also we had no more funding, and we had to wait for the 2010 funding, and that didn't come in until November. So we couldn't, even though the PMP was signed, we couldn't start with a bang because we weren't fully funded yet. But so it has caused a delay in the schedule.
So PMP is the project management plan?
Yes, I'm sorry, the
Okay.
project management plan.
Okay, so, all right.
Please stop me if I use acronyms.
No, I just want to make sure you have an audience listening to you on radio.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And you also have the audience here.
Okay.
So I want to make sure that we're all on the same page as you are explaining the
Okay.
process.
Okay.
Thank you.
As I was saying, there's been an adjustment to the project management plan schedule based on that. We started in the PMP process thinking that we would begin in April, but negotiations took until August, and then we had limited funding available till November. But we also asked for $1.5 million, and that was the optimal funding, and we just received $717,000. However, to put that in perspective, the whole budget for the Albuquerque district is less than that. So getting this much money for this one particular study was quite an accomplishment. So we received those funds in November, and we then began to move forward in the study. And so we have done the charrettes, the purpose of the charrettes is to bring all of the people together that are biologists and interested in the ecosystem restoration portion of the study to help us formulate alternatives. So we use their expertise in a 3-day exercise, and I'll explain that a little bit more in a moment.
In terms of the river master plan and the resources spent and time on that, does that information fold into your charrettes, or is it the charrettes are just a whole different process because of the protocol in your department?
It is a different process. However, we do use the information from the revitalization master plan. We will use it particularly when we develop the recreation component of this plan, and that will be after we have our ecosystem restoration alternative chosen. But it's of great value in also knowing where the city wants us to work. So it was of great value, and it also will help the city as it develops in the future along the river.
And you're with the Corps of Engineers?
Yes, I am.
And what percentage of facilities in the United States has a recreation component? Because we don't have one now, you just have the Corps' presence on the river.
Right.
You envision that the Corps could be involved more with funding and all the other obstacles. What's the Prado? What's the Prado Dam? Is the Prado Dam out in Riverside County or LA County East?
Yes.
And do they have any recreation component? That's a Corps.
There is a trail system going through that
Right.
that area. I can't give you a percentage, but with every ecosystem restoration study that we are doing, we then create a recreation plan as well.
We want you to be partners, so I just wanted to say it's so much difference. And I know Ted, I don't know if Ted's still there at the Corps, but for many, many years, it was a very much uphill battle to work with the Corps, but this is it's music to our ears. Thank you.
Yeah, we do have to follow the criteria for associated recreation, being passive recreation.
Ted's a
but-
good man, but I think now there's more of a concert coming out of the Corps. He was doing what was right at the time. Okay.
And in addition to the allocated funds that we have, we are seeking reprogram funds this year, so that may speed things up a bit. But just to explain the charrettes a little bit more, the purpose was to develop an initial array of alternatives for ecosystem restoration. So the focus was just on ecosystem restoration and bringing together people that were experts in that field. There were 68 participants. Not everyone came for the entire time, but there were about 50 people there at all times. And it was from December 2nd through the 4th. On day one, we began at the Audubon Center at Debs Park and had a orientation meeting where we explained where we were in the study and what the purpose of the charrette would be. And then we did a site visit, and the city helped us to choose the sites along the river reach, and we visited all of those sites with the entire group. The second day, we began with brainstorming, just to make sure that everybody's creative juices were going. Even though there's been a lot of work done already, we wanted to make sure that the planning was focused on ecosystem restoration, so we went through some creative brainstorming. One of the things we did was have everyone imagine what it would be like if the river was restored the way that they wanted to see it, and then write that down for us. They also did some putting sticky notes up on boards and as to where that particular measure would meet the objectives of the study. And then in the afternoon, we began actually putting the alternatives together. There were 7 groups of people who had a set of maps. They actually put the different measures on the maps and everyone took notes and wrote down what their thinking was as they went along, so we had a very good record of what they were doing. And then the third day, they wrapped that up and gave presentations on what their alternatives were. And since then, typical measures were to remove concrete, widen the channel, create more upstream storage for attenuating the flows, create side channels with riparian wetlands, restore tributary confluences, daylight storm drains, and restoring native habitat to the river and to the right-of-way along the river and connecting to green streets. So there were 391 measures. So I can't go through them all, but there were a lot of ideas put into these alternatives. We have over 32 alternatives so far. They were developed using previously formulated alternatives formulated during the charrettes, and variations of those alternatives. In order to screen those down to a manageable and affordable array to do the habitat valuation and cost analysis on, we're weighting the objectives, and that weighting was determined by the city, the Corps, and the Habitat team. And the top 4 objectives that we want to meet are to restore riparian habitat, establish habitat connectivity, restore more natural hydrologic and hydraulic processes in the reach, and restore aquatic habitat. And in order to meet those, some other objectives that have to be considered are to decrease peak discharges, improve water quality, and improve infiltration and recharge. And the next steps are to continue screening the alternatives array using the constraints such as infrastructure, the objective weights and criteria for measures such as the area impacted, the level of engineering needed, sustainability, etc. And that will all address the core criteria of having alternatives that meet our standards for completeness, effectiveness, efficiency, and acceptability. Some of the things that we have to do when we have that array of alternatives is to map them, determine the cost, including real estate requirements, and what would be the habitat benefit of each of those alternatives. And then when we have a smaller final array, we'll look at the environmental quality, the national economic development, regional economic development, and other social effects of each alternative and compare them and determine what our final proposed alternative will be. So there's a lot of work that still needs to be done before March of next year, and we're going to move forward as quickly as possible, and hopefully we can compress some of that time. But as I said, there are a lot of steps and a lot of work, and there'll be a lot of reviews during that process. We'll also consider flood impacts and mitigation if there is anything that needs to be addressed. And then we'll have to go through an agency technical review, a VE study, that's value engineering, to determine that we've made the best possible and the least cost choices in our measures, and then will be reviewed at the division level and the headquarters level. And when we've gone through all of those things, we can have our F4 conference in March. And in addition, working side by side with that, we're also beginning to work on the WRDA demonstration project, the Water Resources Development Act demonstration project. The site that's been chosen is the Bowtie parcel, which is near Taylor Yard. It's 18.6 acres, and it's within the focused area, and it's also within some very important habitat areas. It's owned by California State Parks, and they did several reports on it to endorsing its use for naturalizing open space, and they're very willing to cooperate in using this for the demonstration project. And it will be used to demonstrate and prove the concepts that we're using in the restoration along the river. WRDA 2007 authorized $25 million for the WRDA demonstration projects, and Congress appropriated $100,000 in FY 2010, which is a very large compliment to the city in getting those funds, because there's a rule for no new starts, and this is one of, I think, 2 new starts in the country. So this is a cost-shared study in the construction phase, so it's a 65% federal and 35% local cost share. And the city held public workshops, and the Corps held the design charrettes, and both of those groups agreed that this was the good area to start the demonstration project. And so we're beginning work. We're waiting for implementation guidance, but we've received some interim guidance that suggests that what we need to do is develop that concept plan for that portion of the river. It'll need a project management plan and then a project partnership agreement to move forward into the design phase and construction. And the goal is to complete planning and sign the partnership agreement this calendar year. And this map on the screen shows you some of the features of that area. Do you have any questions?
Yes, well, first, thank you, Ms. Bergen, for being here. And one, I particularly appreciate how you were able to put into context what these resources mean, and in light of the national setting that we're in. It has not been easy. We've been getting to this point, and it's about 6 years now in the trenches, and to see these results is great. It's positive, but there's a certain amount of anxiousness where folks are excited about witnessing a conversion, a metamorphosis, if you will, of how we break out the cement and actually create these new environments. I've gone back to D.C. for the past 2 or 3 years now, and I've been doing it for 6 years. But this past year, we got a clear message from the Obama administration that they want to see jobs. Mr. Roxalt from the Army Corps is speaking to the high-level folks at HUD, Department of Transportation, and they want to look at this interagency collaboration. It's a program that speaks to self-sustaining principles and that can actually result in physical change. And so I've asked them, the WPA back in the 30s, thousands of jobs were created putting the cement in. Thousands of jobs can be created now taking the cement out. And so the sense of urgency that we have is trying to deliver a project for the administration so that the silos that have existed, just because of protocol and the way departments behave at the federal level, because it happens at the state, it happens in the county, the city, and we're learning the hard way that we can't afford these silos anymore. Do you see us being able to create those new bridges between these departments so that the mission you have is not compromised, flood control, safety, and restoration, but working with these other agencies to help move resources to get this plan to be done quicker? Is that within the realm of reality? If you had that magic wand and said, maybe that money comes in from DOT or from EPA or from HUD, that is physically connected to the river, but it also has multiple purposes. Maybe we need to cite open space, recreation, and anchor it down with a mixed-use scenario, but it's connected physically to the river. Is that a process that you can see unfolding in the future?
Well, the Corps of Engineers and all government agencies are being required more and more to cooperate from each other and make those bridges between agencies. And, we do require an ecosystem restoration studies that Fish and Wildlife Service and Fish and Game and all of the other local agencies cooperate, that the county flood control and the Corps of Engineers work together to make sure, flood purposes are maintained, but also that ecosystem restoration can occur. And so far as seeing jobs created, we're hoping that the worded demonstration project will move forward quickly enough that it will put something in the ground and create those jobs, and not just for the purpose of creating jobs, but we do expect to move forward and also inform our study on how well the restoration will work, what is the best method to use for planting things, for getting water into restored areas, and making sure that it isn't torn out in the first flood, or that only the areas that should change in that way will change in that way. And so we are hoping that the worded demonstration project would address that issue. And in the meantime, we do try to work as quickly as possible under the rules that we're given to complete the study.
I think that's a key phrase, that under the rules that were given. So we have to figure out how to change some of those rules to move even faster, would be my assumption.
Yes.
Would that be accurate?
Yes.
Is there any way you can provide a final report date for the study? Is that possible?
Well, I would say that after we reach the F4, it would probably be at least another year, maybe year and a half.
Wow.
Since Katrina, the Corps has been under the microscope, so to speak, so far as the things that it proposes. And we have several new levels of review that have been added. And so we are just learning how to deal with those. And I'm hoping there are a few other studies in the queue ahead of us. I'm hoping the process will become shorter as the LA River moves into that lineup for the different levels of review that have added time to our process. So right now I can't promise the
Right.
timeline because we haven't gone through some of these new processes,
Right.
but I'm hoping that the time will be shortened as we become more expert at getting through these new types of review that are required.
And I'm looking forward to meeting with you more on a wishful thinking basis. I like to be in a place where I can go back to DC and show them that with the understanding of all the legal issues of liability, that there's certain ways we can streamline this. And I'm not going to ask you now, and we won't have that conversation now, but I'd like to perhaps set up some time with you so that way we can lay out a strategy. Because in speaking to the field director of HUD, he's asking for the same thing. And they're all trying to show the administration that this is the quickest way to get people working. And that if we were to understand all these intricacies that have evolved over time because of just the nature of the department, is there ways to streamline it without compromising the notion of safety and flood control? And so I'd love to have that conversation with you at another time.
Okay.
And just kind of focus on that and see how we can start comparing notes, respecting all that which you feel is significant for putting together a program that is going to have that integrity for public safety. And that's a conversation I think we should have, because literally we are being asked, okay, we have this mandate, we have these challenges, we have these departments, how do we work together? And they're asking us for these demonstration models. I sit on the National League of Cities on the executive board. I've been meeting with their representatives, Mr. Agnew, with intergovernmental relations. And so he kind of threw the ball back in my court and said, okay, Councilman, this is so great, show us how to get it done. I'm thinking, wait a minute, it's you guys making those decisions. So it's a two-way street that we're creating here, and how we establish that path of least resistance. And hopefully we can have that conversation in the near future.
I hope so.
I just want to suggest that if we could pick a date, Mr. Chairman, I think it would be good if we have a river congress, if we just say that, from the federal level, state, county, and city, and pick a historic date that may make sense a little within the next 3 to 5 months. And then also pick it at a time that possibly Congress could be there, and that we lay out, as you said, this is what we could try to achieve. I know, and God bless New Orleans, and they need it much more than we do. But if we could work magic in our lifetimes to try to progress this very good plan, we could do that. But I know government answers to the government that it serves. This is part of the federal government. And I remember a long time ago, and working with John Farrar, they were building a post office at 3rd and Western, and I asked them for a signal at Manhattan and 3rd, 1 block west, and he said, I'm here just as a courtesy for the federal government because of being a subordinate government as it really is. And there's still no signal there because they didn't need to put it in because they don't have to because of how government works, and we're all stressed. That being said, if we all got together and just in almost like every year now we have this big powwow, we probably could push a little bit, because I think it needs to be, because this is now, we got the team. We got the team. We're ready to play in the big leagues, and now we should see it. So that's a thought.
That's a great strategy. I do know we'll be meeting in, I think, the 3rd week of March in D.C.
March 12th is scheduled for River Day in Washington, D.C.
And then the League of Cities is the next week, though, right?
Right. So we're going to be having the Congress members there and the various departments there in D.C. And thanks to our city engineer, Mr. Moore, and the Riverly unit, that we're able to have a very strong presentation as to what we've accomplished, where we're going. And it's a great compliment to the Army Corps to be able to display how supportive you've been. I think the question here now is, how do we become more efficient with our time to create those jobs? And that's, I think, what the American public is waiting for. They're trying to see how we can get this this ignition of activity that creates jobs, and that's what we're trying to get to. So any other questions, Councilman Laban?
That's good.
Ms. Burke, thank you so much for your time. This has been very enlightening, and I look forward to working with you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Public comment on this, any cards? No? Okay. The next item, sir?
Item number 2, Bureau of Engineering status report relative to the establishment of Los Angeles River Special Projects Office and the implementation of the River Revitalization Master Plan.
Great. Mr. Moore, good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, council members. Great to be here. I think the first thing I want to start off with is the demonstration project. The demonstration project, as you heard Kathy said, we did receive $100,000. In the executive meeting that we have every few months with the Army Corps, we got to meet with the colonel and talk about and really try to push this project, and really encourage the Army Corps, who's been given this $100,000, to develop a concept plan for this in the next few months. But in anticipation of going in March here, I've asked our staff to come up with a couple sketches of what this demonstration project at the bow tie would actually look like. Because I think, for me, I'm a very visual person, and I think, we're asking for approximately $6 million to get going on this project. And one of the other things we've done is the overall project probably could be as high as 25 million is what the appropriation, or not the appropriation, but what's the right term, Carol?
We need to get,
What's been, the 25 million has been
authorized. Now we need it
authorized, thank you.
appropriated.
Authorized. I got to keep my federal government terms correct here. 25 million is authorized. We're looking at how we can do this project in phases and to really not just spend money on planning, but to see something in the ground. And so
Pretty good, Gary.
it's important for us to be able to show that we can do something, because we also definitely are partners with both of you in your constant encouragement to get some to go into the ground. And so we're very much looking to see this demonstration project. And I know, the mayor's office and the mayor has been very supportive of moving on this demonstration project also. And just a couple other things. At the Friends of the Los Angeles River annual dinner, I want to acknowledge both of you, and the mayor was present, and Councilman LaBonge was a great MC that night. It was a wonderful evening, and Councilman Reyes gave a great talk also, and I know the Mayor Villaraigosa also enjoyed his time there, and it's continued to show the support of the entire city family for this river restoration. And finally, I just want to thank Councilman Reyes also, who came over to our offices last Thursday morning and recognized the staff for their work on the Los Angeles River. And it meant so much to the staff, especially in these tough budget times, when they got to hear from you, when a council member comes over and got, about the tough times in the budget. And I just want to say thanks for that. And I'll turn it over to Carol and Larry to go ahead through the details here.
I just want to say thank you for that opportunity as well.
Go River. Hi, Carol Armstrong with the Bureau of Engineering LA River Project Office. I'm just going to go through a couple of items in our monthly progress report. I'm here with my river brother Larry Hsu, who's also going to chime in. First of all, we are very excited that we are getting to the inaugural meeting of the River Cooperation Committee meeting with the county. That's going to be a regular meeting that stems from the River MOU that was adopted by the city and the County Board of Supervisors. So that's been rescheduled from February 1st to March 8th. And we're also very excited that the River Foundation has had some movement. A great group of young professionals from the New Leaders Project of the Jewish Federation gave us their recommendations on what they see the future of the foundation could be. They did that on February 10th, and Lupe Vela, the Senior Policy Director for the committee, was there, and I believe they are also going to provide a presentation to the River Revitalization Corporation Board on that in the future. And at mentioning the board, I wanted to also recognize Chairman Chandler, who's here, and my river brother Jason, who's going to provide a little bit more detail about the corporation. The LA River Project Office has been very excited about the formation of the board, and we've participated in river tours and some briefings, and we look forward to participating on their first retreat on the 27th, next weekend.
I just want to add the entire, I think everybody was present, the entire board, right, Harry, for the River Revitalization Corporation came over, and we got to meet at my office with them, and it was just a great opportunity to spend time with them, and it's very, very encouraging, the energy and focus that they have and the practical and creative, I think, solutions that they're going to help with this entire revitalization plan. So I definitely want to thank Carrie Chandler and the entire board for taking time to meet with me and our staff.
Exactly.
Thank you. So in addition to what Kathy mentioned earlier about the study and the WRDA demonstration project, the city is submitting additional earmarks for the Sepulveda BEAR project, which stands for the Sepulveda Basin Ecosystem Analysis and Restoration Project. And I also wanted...
Is that your brainchild as well?
It kind of is, yes.
Okay.
I thought it was memorable.
Okay.
That's looking at 3 phases of the different channels within the Sepulveda Basin and how we can bring ecosystem restoration to bear in that area. And additionally, I wanted everyone to be aware that the Army Corps is also hosting public meetings and moving forward with the update to the Sepulveda Basin Master Plan, which hasn't been updated for quite some time. So it's something that we need to be aware of and make sure that it's riverly in nature. And I want to turn over to Larry to talk about details of some of the river projects.
How you doing, Larry?
Pretty good. How are you?
Okay.
As far as the North Atwater Park project is concerned, we are at 95% design. Thank you. And we're negotiating a use agreement with the county. There's still one sticky issue that has to do with the liability that we're working on with them. Sunny Nook River Park is also in a similar stage of design, steered 99+%. And we are pursuing negotiation of a lease with DWP between Rec and Parks and DWP, and trying to negotiate that rent.
This is Atwater, correct?
And Councilman LeBon is trying to help us on that also with the lease agreement with,
This is your Atwater project here, Tom.
Right, exactly.
right?
Well, yeah, that's correct.
But just reemphasize,
Yes, it was the councilman who helped negotiate that.
But did we get it? Did we win yet?
No, it's still under review with the department.
Wait till I know.
we need a little more, we need a little more help. We need a little more help to get it across the finish line.
Hold on here.
Okay, so make a phone call right now. All right, Tom.
Wow, action.
Immediate action. Go for it, Mr. Shu.
As far as the Prop 84 grant applications, the Albion Dairy Park project, which is being put together by Department of Rec and Parks, is being finalized. There were 5 public meetings, and the applications are due March 1st. And thank you, Councilman, for attending several of those meetings.
Oh, well, thank you, your staff and committee folks and District 1 staff. I think that, that's a tough area to organize. And that's a tough area to get people to come out. And more than on several occasions, you had a good group of people, and I've seen people from the local churches, local residencies, and it's a tough place in terms of getting folks to, because the poverty levels are there pretty high, 40% poverty. So kudos to you guys that you're able to get that kind of energy there.
2 more projects that were planned to go forward for the Prop 84 grant applications, receipt of River Loop and the Downtown Riverway Parkway have been the Trust for Public Land was the lead on those projects, but they've decided not to proceed with pursuing grant applications for various reasons, mostly because they thought it would not be competitive, and
Okay.
in one case, it required an agreement with the landowner, and they weren't able to secure it in time.
Okay. In terms of the River City County Cooperation Committee review, what kind of items do you see being addressed by this body?
I think one of the biggest things that has always been a concern is the whole issue of being able to move projects through as fast as possible. I think by having a master agreement, I think liability has always been one of the biggest challenges, and along with maintenance. And I really look at this as an opportunity to show what we know that is happening here locally, the unification, but it will be another strong document to show both Sacramento and Washington, D.C. when it comes to implementation, that we've worked out the details. It's not like give us the money and we'll figure it out. It's been worked out. And so I think that's really going to be strong for us when it comes to having this agreement. And I think it's exciting because with reduction of resources, it gives us a great opportunity to figure out how we're going to do maintenance, because we work with some great nonprofits
Right.
that come up with projects, are able to get funding, even sometimes do the design, but maintenance is always a concern. So how do we add the capacity? How can the city and the county share in the maintenance and really continue to make this transformation that we all believe is should and will happen?
So the efficiencies by a collaboration, as represented by these entities, will give us that streamline effect, we hope.
I think well said.
Okay.
Well said. I really believe that efficiencies are going to be key out of this, because I think the staffs on, when the staff at Los Angeles County is reviewing this, or their attorneys, they have certain responsibilities. But once we get the details worked out, we've got this master agreement. The other thing is just knowing what each party is doing, how we can, partnering on grant applications, really focusing in on this river revitalization for the Los Angeles River.
And I don't want to I'm trying to avoid walking into hornets' nests with this question. But the issue of, let's say, the art policy. We had an incident with murals at one point a few years back. It wasn't clear what the art policy was. And so is this the body that engages that, or are we blurring the focus of the purpose of this entity?
Well, I think I love clarity first of all. So I think this is a great opportunity for the Public Works and of LA County and the City of Los Angeles to work together here on issues like that, to bring it up in an organized manner at a staff level, so that if we've got to change policies or whatever, we're there together, we're discussing
or
it.
define one.
Or define one. And so I think this is a great opportunity, great venue for that. And it brings the focus at a very high level on a regular basis to the river, working out those details, because the county has, in their 1996 master plan has worked on certain issues like the landscape palette, the signage and so forth. I think working together again on the art policy, I would welcome it on the committee, and we'll definitely mention that when we do meet with them here coming up.
And I think the leveraging capacity of each organization that's beginning to establish itself will help achieve a certain level of momentum, if you will. The River Corporation and its mission to stimulate and be nimble in the development side, the foundation dealing with the social and the arts and more of the philanthropic nature of the river, in of itself is going to create energy, and Congress members and senators will be aware of that. And I think it's part of the stage that we're developing, where everyone has a spotlight, but is working in concert and making sure that we are progressing in a very systematic fashion that, again, enhances public safety and reaches the goals of the master plan. Any questions, council member?
No, I just think the biggest task is, and I mentioned, in no disrespect to the former representative of the Corps of Engineers, in the early days from Mr. Bradley's office forth, there was always struggles between county, city. What was Carl Bloom? Carl Bloom was with the county.
He was the deputy director.
Right, all those people. Now we're at a time where we can try to find common ground and make everybody win. And I think also it helps, too, that you recognize these other entities in anything we do. Even though it's our project, we probably should say with the cooperation of the County of Los Angeles or the Army Corps of Engineers, federal government, something.
We concur. It is
All
definitely.
about relationships right now.
Yeah, we're very supportive of it. It takes all three of us.
Great.
In the meetings for this organization, the River City County Cooperation Committee, are these public meetings?
We did not agendize them, but are we? Did we put it on? We did not put it on www.LA River. Sorry, only 3 W's. www.lariver.org. We did not post it there. This is the first meeting. I think we could put that on the agenda to talk about that in the future. I think the first meeting here, we were just getting everybody together, kind of laying out the framework for the future meetings and so forth.
And it would be a good discussion in the future to find out what direction we want to take it. I think transparency would be just as significant, too.
Yeah, I don't see a problem with it.
But I think you may have to do some things, though, in the beginning, because some people, and I just had this experience the other day, they live next to the park, and they are hostile towards any improvement to the park. So I think you have to be prepared, and I would say that you, at some, obvious, whatever's the appropriate rules to follow, but I think departments need to meet to look what the city's best interest. And then I think you should, if we define a coalition of the neighborhood councils or whomever are adjacent to the Los Angeles River in any strong way, do you have that?
Not at this time.
If you could do that, whether it's from through downtown, the south end of downtown, Boyle Heights, through Lincoln Heights, the Atwater Village, the Greater Griffith Park, and through Toluca Lake, North Hollywood, Studio City, all the way out to Sepulveda and beyond. I think it would be helpful if someone could do that, and then email those to connect to them this particular process we're going through that's multi-year, and try to get a contact. The Greater Griffith Park Neighborhood Council has a Parks, Open Space, and River Committee. So and then it brings in the Silver Lake and Atwater people to that, so try to cover more turf. But I think that'd be a good thing, Gary. But I do believe that it's important when you start in the public process to try to get the public's input at all times, but at the same time, the professionals should see. I know there were people in the early days of this, I was working with the mayor's office, who absolutely wanted nothing out by Al's Deli, or what's it? Not Al's Deli. What's out there? It's in the second district now. But anyway.
In Studio City.
Studio City.
Yes.
And now they have something, they love it. So I think
Right.
we should come, when you come to play, make sure you have a organization that says this is what the parameters are.
And I just want to lastly just mention that although we're having this meeting, it will not exclude any of the normal outreach that we do on a project-by-project basis, the extensive outreach that because the community input, I just want to echo what both of you said, community is so important to all of us, and we've been very inclusive and on an individual project and so forth, and there will be great input and continued partnership with the community because they've been great advocates for us.
Thank you, City Engineer. I appreciate that. And no other questions? Anybody here for public comment on this? Nope. Okay. So we'll note and file this report with the recommendation to support Albion application for Prop 84.
Okay.
That's the second item. Our third item?
Item number 3, CAO report relative to the quarterly status of Los Angeles River revitalization projects. Staff from the CAO.
Good afternoon.
Afternoon, Lori Hancock with the CAO.
Come a long way, haven't we?
Yes.
All right. Good to see you.
You have before you the first report for 2010. This provides an update and status of the projects that the city is undertaking. There are a number of other entities that are undertaking projects, as you've heard from the city engineer. This report relates to the things that the city is actually doing. Some of the most recent highlights are that the Albion Dairy actually closed escrow, and it's a 6.3 acre parcel,
Right.
1.5 miles set northeast of downtown, and it was purchased with $17.5 million in Prop O.
Right.
And also you've heard from Larry that they're actually going to be applying for Prop 84
And Dairy?
for the development.
Good.
Congratulations, Mr. Reyes. That's a
Thank you,
great
sir.
acquisition.
Very
Thank you. That goes to the city family, so thank you guys. Just one follow-up on that transaction. I think we should be collecting the rent from the tenants there. So we have to make sure
Okay,
that,
that is actually occurring. I think that was written into the agreement, but we can follow up.
but I got the notice from the tenant saying, I got some checks waiting for you guys.
Oh.
And I said, wow, really? How many checks? And he told me, and I go, wow, that could probably fund about a position or two. So we need to start collecting our money.
Okay.
Thank
Mr.
you.
Reyes, Madam CAO, I have a community meeting at 4. I'm going to leave, but I'll get a review of that copy. We'll see you in council. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you, sir. Appreciate your support, Tom.
You betcha. Thank you, CAO.
Another issue that the river projects have run into is cash flow, because a lot of the state agencies are providing funds on a reimbursement basis. Prop 84 and Prop 50 are two of those. 2 projects were funded through the Public Works Trust Fund for cash flow. That would be North Atwater Park and Sunny Nook River Park. And we took a look at that and realized that we could expand that to cover the Los Angeles River Parkway as well, so that we'll be able to cash flow that Prop 50 project.
Beautiful.
To continue on with the river projects.
Okay.
Okay. And I think most importantly in this report is it provides a summary of all of the projects, but what we've done is expanded it to include a brief description of the projects. I know it's been a little bit of confusion as to what these projects are, so in the various categories that there are like 25 bridges, and the rest of the projects are recreational bike paths and parks and facilities. And in this report, on this spreadsheet, it provides a description of that. And lastly, we've included a listing of our accomplishments. We've actually spent $68 million on 13 projects that have been completed.
Wow. The accessibility to these are all public documents, correct?
Yes, they're online.
Okay, good. They're online.
They're online, and I think they actually will be posted on the LA River website as well.
Beautiful.
And actually, once the city clerk receives the documents, they're uploaded on CFMS, Council File Management System, so they are available to any member of the public or anybody who's interested in looking at the report.
Great. And the gosh, lost my train of thought. Okay, so that will be made public.
Yes.
All this is good stuff. And in terms of the how can I phrase this? When we start looking at the impact of ERIP and what that does to the departments and how it affects projects. I'm assuming we'll start understanding that wave of events and how it manifests itself in these project timelines.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Unfortunately, we're losing a lot of, there's a big brain drain and
Right.
staffing levels. So we're seeing that in the Prop 12 and 40, the BOE recreational projects as well. So while this report does provide timelines, if you were to look at the last report, a lot of them have been extended significantly. So that is
Okay.
going to have a negative effect on the completion of the projects.
So that speaks to the whole priority we have. If we can get federal revenues, that helps us. But that might not even help because the folks that have left are in their special funded categories anyway.
A lot of times they are, yes.
That would be accurate?
Yeah, I would say so. There are 4 projects in here that are ARA funded, and they are additional projects, 4 bridges that have gotten ARA monies to do expanded work on some of the bridges. And now we could not do the bridge work or expand the actual work that's done on the bridge that is existing work because those are already federally funded. But we can do a broader scope. So we are seeing some of that coming into play. But as far as staffing levels, that's not going to change that at this point.
Okay. Now I remember the question. The bike path, that's, I believe, in construction now, correct?
Elysian?
Yes. What's the time frame for that? Do you happen
It's
to know?
nearing completion. I think they were talking about April. I understand. I saw one of the blogs that a group actually went, I think on the 20th last weekend. They did take a tour. But I think it's scheduled for completion in April.
In April, great.
And then there's a separate greening component, which is being undertaken by the MRCA.
Right.
So the bike path is actually being done by DOT, and then the greening will be done by the MRCA. So that enters back into, while you would not see the greening component in this report, it is something that another entity is undertaking.
Right. I think that project is an anomaly. I started working on that in 1994 as a plan from the previous director. And because of lawsuits, I think it was like 22 property owners. It took us about, I think, 12 years to get through that. So, and the construction is happening quick now, relatively speaking. But these are the intricacies that a lot of folks aren't aware of. But for me, that was a big ticket item to see that progressed. Okay, any questions from the public? Any public comment on this one? Okay, so we could note and file this report. And just a couple of announcements before we adjourn. And thank you very much for your hard work. Thank you, ma'am. We have tomorrow at 5:30 at CRA is the next River Committee Corporation, is that right? And that's open to the public. And I know CRA staff is here. Is there any update that you want to provide on that particular item or anything else?
If you'd like me to provide a report, I have one I can give briefly. Talk to your staff later.
Oh, but it's not on the agenda, so I'll get brown axe slapped. So next time we'll put you on the agenda. All right, so I want to thank you guys for your hard work, and we also have is the same note? Okay, just reading it. That's what happens when you don't have glasses. All right, so I think that's all the items on the agenda, and seeing no other public comment, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.